everyone. Thanks for being here, and thanks for being so patient. I know we're 20 minutes late. That's nothing. Anyway, so welcome to FutureProof 23. Today we have Mack Garrison and Jacob Garcia from Dash. So today they will be sharing their experience and to give us a presentation on how to land your dream job. Okay, yeah. So a little about Dash. Dash is a high-end animation and a motion design studio, and they're experienced with many different mediums, from 3D, 2D, illustrative, to mixed media, live action, so pretty much what we do here. And from collaborating with freelancers from all around the globe and giving folks the opportunities to do internship and mentorships, they have worked on various different projects. And you should follow them on Instagram because they do have a lot of fun cat content. Mack Garrison is the director of content, entrepreneur, and one of the co-founders of Dash. And Jacob, he graduated last year. We know him. We saw him last year. He was among us here, and now he made his way there. Well, yeah, we're so happy to have you both here, and can't wait to hear what you have to say to us. Please stay for the entire presentation, as we will wrap it up with a Q&A session as well. Thank you.
What a phenomenal intro. Thanks, Ruth. I appreciate that. Yes, we're Dash. Ta-da! We are a high-end animation and motion design studio there we go.
Wow.
That believes in the power of creativity and community. And really excited to tell you a little bit about some of that stuff today. Excited to be here at FutureProof. Let's give it up for FutureProof. Woo! I flew down here this morning, and I'm such a timely person. I was so nervous I was going to be late. I was like at the airport early. No hassles whatsoever. I rolled up. Jacob was just hanging in the parking lot. We were good to go.
I was hanging in the parking lot, listening to music. Because I was nervous to walk in here.
Excellent,
alone.
excellent. But yeah, we're really excited to be down here. I've heard a lot of great things from Ringling, and really excited to meet you all over the course of the next few days. But really, what we're going to get into today is talking about, there we go. Oh, that's me. There we are again. There's Jacob.
Wow.
Look at those pictures.
Wow.
Tips to land your dream job. That's what I put up there. Tips to land your dream job. I remember, graduating, I won't tell you when, a long time ago in a galaxy far away, back when I actually used to animate before starting a studio, where my job has shifted a lot to operations. I'm not sure how that happened, but I still know a lot about creative. But when I graduated, it's an interesting feeling. Your whole life, you have the next step kind of planned for you, right? It's like, all right, I'm gonna go to the next grade. I'm gonna sign up for these classes. I'm gonna get better at illustration, better at design. But then you graduate. What do you do next? How do you get on people's radar? How do you meet people? Oh my gosh, you gotta go talk to other humans. It's crazy. So what we're gonna try to do today is arm you with some things that I wish someone told me when I was graduating. Stuff that I know now that works really well, and stuff that you can do so you can talk about that time that you went to go see a presentation with Dash, and you're like, oh my gosh, they got me a job. Before we get into that though, you gotta trust me, right? You gotta know that Mack knows what he's talking about. They do good stuff. So we'll get into a little bit of that about Dash. So there's a lot of great studios here. There's a lot of great studios around the US and the world, and I'm thrilled that folks think Dash is part of that. I'm really proud of the work we make. I think it is really good. And as Ruth said, we do a lot of different things. We do live action, we do animation, we do motion graphics, 2D, 3D, some cell. We really love this generalist kind of approach, because it's boring doing the same thing over and over again. So we try to do a lot of it, and we try to be really good at it. But the reason folks keep coming back to Dash, and the reason we've been successful over the last 8 years, is crazy. I feel like I've been doing it forever. 8 years, 2015, is that we have a lot of personality. We are really gregarious. I have a room full of introverted animators and designers who would really argue against that, but we love talking about design. We love talking about animation. We love the reasoning and choices we make behind what we do, and that's what clients want. So we love talking about the reasons of why we choose to do something. We're symbiotic. We love people. We love working with folks. Not only with our clients, we really try to put ourselves in a position where we are collaborators with our clients. It's not just go do this. We want to ask the right questions, And it's the same with our staff. No one ever works by themselves. I think that's something that's really important. If there's a key piece to take away from here is collaboration. Your peers your colleagues, they're not your competition, they're not your enemy, they are the folks that are going to help you. So we always try to be really collaborative in the studio. Really optimistic. You guys are really optimistic right now, but just wait 10 years in design, you're going to question that a little bit. You're like, oh my God. This is like round of 4, unbelievable. I think if you always look at things with a really optimistic attitude, problem-solving attitude, going back to some of the things that they've taught you here at Ringling, you'll be in a good place, and that's what we do at Dash. Really creative. We have fun with the stuff that we make, not only from that final product and what it is, but how we get there. Storyboards, style frames, animatic. Take time and care with that stuff, and it supports what you end up making at the end. Honesty and efficiency. Always be honest, always be transparent. Dash, we always tell people why we can or conversely cannot do something. We're just straightforward with our clients and we're straightforward with our stash, and we don't waste time. I think as a generalist studio, there's always something to work on. We can always help one another out, so we hop around a little bit. But that's the reason that folks keep coming back to us in addition to the work. Little sound effect there. I'll be a sound designer. Design and community. Okay, so why is this important? Why do we really think a community-driven studio is a thing that we need in this space? When I started Dash back in 2015, I was an animator, I was a designer, I had no idea how to run a business. Just as you have no idea how to be a professional designer, we all don't know things. And that's okay, because early on I found out really quickly how willing this industry is to help us, how willing people are to go out of their way to show you some direction, to help you. And the success of Dash in the early days was a result of other studio owners, other people chatting, Handel and I were just talking earlier about how we've run into each other at like 8 events over the last decade. And those are the moments that are so important because you get to meet and collaborate with other people. So as we grew as a studio, isn't there a laser pointer on here? Look at this. As we grew as a studio, these interactions were so important, and we felt like the best way that we could give back to the community that's given so much to us was to invest in things like internships. It was to invest in things like our diversity and inclusion mentorship program to make our space more inclusive. It's the reason we throw the Dash back, because we want to get all of us together, do more hangouts like this, because this is fun. We just all get to hang out and talk shop. I love that stuff. And so from the community standpoint, working with one another, it makes folks interested in Dash. It makes people interested in helping one another. From a client perspective, it always ensures that we have good creatives that we can work with to make projects. So even if it's not one of the 13 full-time staff we have at the studio, it can be one of the freelancers that come into play. So we're partners. So we do animation, mixed media, 3D, cell. We talked a little bit about some of that stuff. Some of the projects we do, I could sit here we go. I could sit here all day and we could play all these animations, and that'd be really fun. But I don't think you would get as much out of it as I would. But as a general studio, we can do some typography-based pieces, that maybe don't have sound but have a lot of kinetic energy. It can be your more classic MoGraph explainer videos, some stuff we did for Coinbase or Red Hat, some tech groups. It can be your classic character animation. I think this is what my parents still think I do for a living. They're like, Mack, he makes cartoons for a living. It's like, oh yeah, thanks Mom, that's me. Enzo the Magician, this was such a fun project. Ask me about that later, I'll tell you why it was so fun. Mixed styles, over the pandemic, this became, whoa. That's all of it, now we're in 3D. Let's come back, mixed styles, illustrative. So we do mixed styles, we do mixed styles.
You got it.
So with the mixed styles, it became really popular over the pandemic. How do you take this disparate amount of assets and make them all unified into something really cool? That's some motion designer skill right there. So we do that. We got the mixed media stuff. We've got live action that we passed. We got some 3D animation. We really do a lot. And I think, again, goes back to just the variety of stuff that we can make. Even the live action stuff is really fun. One of the reasons I always say come to Dash for a live action piece is because we can bring in some animation when it's a necessity. We can think about really cool ways to shoot something that maybe someone who's more traditional with the live action stuff might not. So we have a fun time doing it. We probably average, I would say, in a given year, somewhere between 40 and 50 projects, which is crazy amount of stuff, and it really covers the range that we have there. All right, so process. I'm not going to harp on this too much because you all know a lot of this, but just kind of how Dash thinks about the work that we take on. This will come into play a little bit later on when we're talking about shaping your portfolios and what it needs to look like through the lens of a studio. What are we looking for when I'm trying to hire a creative? So first, we win the project. I don't know why I'm pointing at that screen. Here we go. I'll go down here for this one.
Nice.
Jacob will talk here soon, I promise.
I will, yeah. Now, Mack's a talker.
Just a little bit. So process. So Dash every project we take on has these 6 key steps. So whether it is a single one-off video for a client, or we're doing something like 10 videos, which is something we have done for a campaign of work, we'll follow these 6 key steps. First off is discovery. Why are we doing this? It's really easy as creatives, and I'm guilty of this too, to get so caught up in what we're going to make, how it's going to look, all the excitement that comes with that we forget that people are hiring us and paying us money to be problem solvers first. Like, what are we doing with this video? What do we want people to do after watching it? So discovery kind of figures out, if our demographic is 18-year-olds scrolling TikTok versus a 65-year-old real estate broker. Those are 2 very different animations. From there, it's ideation. What have we made in our library of content that works really well? What exists in the motion design community as a whole? Or maybe what this group has from a competitive audit, what are they up against? From there, we get into messaging, pre-production, where we're ultimately building style frames, storyboards, animatics. Production, where we make everything move and follow the map. And then lastly, final files, which has really shifted over the years to something that is a little bit of everything, because final files and what your actual deliverable is could be a single video, it could be cut downs, it could be 1x1s. You'll find out more about what those are from clients, but they just have a litany of different things that they ask for. In general, Dash turns these projects around in about 8 to 12 weeks in totality from start to finish. Sometimes we work a lot quicker when there's a big deadline, and sometimes clients are slow and it takes a little bit longer. I'm going to go back up here.
Solid. Go get him.
All right. Bye, Jacob.
Bye.
This just sounds better. Okay. Boop. So here is a script we did for a group called Celtra. They're a marketing automation platform, and they want us to make an explainer video for them. So what our scripts look like is essentially this. We start with a voiceover on the left-hand side. I'll put on my voiceover voice. As a head of marketing, you're used to managing big teams and big budgets. Your teams are armed with the latest media buying technology, mountains of customer data, and the ability to reach any demographic you can dream of. Why can't you win the attention of consumers? That wasn't bad. On the right, we'll start off with a visual description. So we'll say, like, the story opens on the close-up of the CMO, Chief Marketing Officer. He's confident, happy, and seasoned. He's ready for anything. As the camera pulls back, we see the team working hard around him. The camera continues to pull back as the scene is enveloped by clouds of data, revealing a woman in front of a giant digital screen, so on, so on, so on. But the idea here is that we're really painting a picture of what's to come. So if you're a designer or an illustrator, a lot of times at Dash, this is what you're getting. You get this script, and it's your job to take some of this copy that we're kind of giving you some general direction on and bring that to life. So what that looks like as far as a character-driven piece, what are our characters going to look like? Body type, ethnicity, shape, age, gender, all those things start to come into play. So in this instance, I'm just highlighting a few of them, but a lot of times we'll do multiple pages of these to suss out who our main character is going to be. Then it's on to style frames, still images that convey the overall look and feel of the project. What does the color palette look like? How are compositions arranged? If there's call-outs, what could those be? But again, trying to show clients where we're heading without that investment in motion. It's always a layered process with what we're trying to do. From there, we get into storyboards. Storyboards, we try to be really detailed. The first version of these, internally, we always call them trash boards because they're absolute garbage. You don't need to have something super clean right away, but just get those ideas out. And then before you send it to the client, we'll refine it and make it a little bit more detailed. So that same copy you saw earlier, as the head of marketing, you're used to managing big teams and big budgets. Your teams are armed with the latest media buying technology, mountains of customer data, and the ability to reach any demographic you can dream of. So you can see really quickly that even a client who might not fully understand the creative process can see where we're heading. They can see the style frames, they understand kind of the aesthetic we're gonna have, they can see the storyboards, they can see where we're going. And Jacob, I know you know the importance of storyboards.
Yeah, I mean, we do it all the time. When you're at school, we would do it, we were taught it. And I think it's just important because you're not really surprising, the client, or you're not, there's nothing out of the blue coming out of nowhere. And the client's like, what the hell is this? I didn't see this before. It should be all on your storyboard and your animatic, and I think that's why storyboards are so important. It's also, and you know this from working on projects, and I know the seniors know this from doing their thesis right now, storyboards allow you to kind of have a guide of what you're doing. Because, when I was doing thesis, I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and that's not a great thing, but, storyboards kind of kept me going back to that and looking at that.
So from there, once we get storyboards, we got to figure out pacing. How long is this going to be? How short is it going to be? And so this is where an animatic comes into play. So I won't play the voiceover because it's just a scratch track that we have in there. But again, nothing too different than what you all have experienced. I mean, it is exactly what you're learning now that goes into this. It doesn't need to be anything fabulous. It can just be kind of roughed out, but you're just trying to show pacing. Because again, we all know the last thing you want to do is animate something and then have to start over on it. So just getting that timing down is really important. So if we're doing our job correctly, we do all these pieces, the client's signing off, they're like, oh my gosh, Dash, you guys are so cool. Thanks for doing all this stuff for us. And we're like, no problem, I'm stalling while I pull up this other video. We get here to this other video, and this is what it ends up looking like.
As a head of marketing, you're used to managing big teams and big budgets. Your teams are armed with the latest media buying technology, mountains of customer data, and the ability to reach any demographic you can dream of. Why can't you win the attention of consumers? It's
because your digital advertising isn't relevant. I've heard that one a lot. But again, all these pieces just start to build on itself and on each other. And so, this shouldn't be a surprise on a lot of these things that we do, but now you can see the different steps that go into a video. Now, if we're doing 3D, there's some modeling, there's some lighting, there's some texturing stuff. If we're doing something that's more of a MoGraph, maybe there's no character sheets. It always shifts a little bit, but you can see in general how the breakdown is of it, which is important as we start getting into what you want to be building on your portfolio. Okay, let me pull back up the PowerPoint. All right, perfect. Skip ahead. Boop, boop, boop. Okay, so now, all right, do you guys like semi think I know what I'm doing? Like, did we validate that enough? All right, good. Okay, perfect. So landing your dream job, back to you all. Enough about us, back to you. How do we get you all jobs outside of school? Quick show of hands, seniors in here. How many seniors do I have? Woo, seniors. We got some juniors. Cool. Any juniors in here? Woo. Any sophomores, freshmen? Aren't you guys supposed to be in class right now? I'm just kidding. Just kidding. No, glad to have you here. Younger folks, you have some time to think about this. It's good to look through the lens of this stuff as you're taking your classes. Seniors, a little less time, but that's all right. You can still button some things up. Okay, so we got 4 things we're going to talk about here. I'm going to run through the first 2, and then I'm going to pass it over to Jacob for a couple. But probably the single most important thing I can tell you right now, and if you take one thing away from this conversation, it is define your end goal. And that seems so final. It's not. You can always pivot, you can always shift. But the importance of thinking through this, where do you want to be next year? Where do you want to be in 3 years? Where do you want to be in 5 years? Even if that's something that changes, which it will, and that's okay, it's going to stop you from rowing your boat in circles. Because what designers do a lot of time is that we're so eager to get into this space. We're so hungry to be a professional and to throw away this student tag that we say yes to what comes our way, even if it's not the right fit, even if it's not pushing us towards the next stage in our process. So what could be a goal? What are some ideas that could be a goal? It could be the type of city you want to live in. Maybe you want to be in LA. That can be a goal. Maybe you want to be solely focused on 2D animation. That can be a goal. Maybe it's 3D. Maybe there's a particular studio Dash that you want to work at. That can be a goal. But having that written down, thinking through that is really important because it starts to shape the projects you say yes to. So I made this little sheet, and my printer broke this morning, so I don't have it, but that's all right. I'll make a version available for you all. And it's just a simple worksheet that I think helps define a little bit on what to think through on your goals. So I made up a fake character. We have Ramona MoGraph. God, the worst. Thank you for the 3 laughs. So Ramona MoGraph is so cheesy. What are some of her goals? So she wants to work full-time in a studio or agency because she really needs community. That's something that she wants. She really loved the community that happened in the studio atmosphere at school and wants to keep that going. She wants to specialize in 2D, really great 2D motion designer, and she would love to do work with brands that are mission-driven. That would be her goal. She'd love to work in Boston. That's a place that she wants to sell. She has some friends in Boston, had a good time that one time back junior year, so she wants to get up to Boston. And, she really hates 3D. She's good at it. We do know this, but she hates 3D. And then when we think about what she wants to do in 5 years, she really wants to be an art director. She knows that she's really talented, but she understands that her best ability comes with direction, uniting people, and so that's a long-term goal for her. So when she starts doing her research and she's thinking about where she should apply, I think part of it is being honest with your skill set. And it doesn't mean to be negative about yourself. You should always reinforce positive reinforcement. But, you want to start off and say, okay, well, what would be my dream studio? Like, of course, like Dash, right? Dream studio. But maybe there are some targets. She wants to be up in Boston, so maybe it's Newfangled, Black Math, or Planet Nutshell could be some places. But maybe she wants to do some safeties as well. So she knows she'd be a good fit for the local agency. It's not really where she wants to be, but she could apply. This other design studio, maybe this brand team that's around there. So she starts sending out these applications, and she gets a couple of offers and a couple of leads. So option 1, it's a 6-month freelance project. No option for full-time, strictly 2D animation, which is good. She wants to do 2D. The pay is phenomenal. Mix of fun and boring projects, but it's remote only, so she only gets to talk to an AD, and we know community was really important to her. Option 2, Dream Studio. She wants to work at a dream studio. It's mission-driven. It's full-time, but maybe there's like a low-growth path here. Maybe in this dream studio, there's a lot of competition for art director, potentially, and so there's not a lot of growth. A lot of 3D work with only some 2D. The pay isn't great, and maybe it's a lot of boring projects because she's kind of coming in at an entry level there. But she does get to relocate to Boston, which is where she wants to be. So, some of the takeaways here is the dream studio, which is great, but it's doing work she doesn't really want to do with money that's not that great, so something to keep in mind. And then option 3 here, it's a studio she hasn't heard of, full-time, but it has a leadership path. It's all 2D animation, pays pretty good, and it's a mixture of fun clients, although she has to stay local to the current city that she's in. Out of curiosity, who's going with option 1? Who's taking option 1? Option 1, freelance, maybe build up that portfolio a little bit. It's a good idea. Get that money, give yourself some flexibility. Jacob, you going with 1?
I'm going with 1, yeah.
All right, who's going dream studio? Number 2, who takes the dream studio job? Why do you think you go with the dream studio? Not put you on the spot.
I just think that, maybe...
I'll come over here.
Sorry. I think a lot of important stuff to me has to do with, not so much the boring projects or the pay, but more like the community. And if it's has to relocate to Boston, if she really wants to be in Boston, then it would be I like that community there.
Yeah, that's great. That's a really good response. All right, who's option 3? Who's taking option 3? Good mixed bag. And then half of you guys are declining all these jobs. Unbelievable. No, I'm just kidding. So option 3, there's that full-time growth path. So as you're thinking about 5 years from now, there's that and good work. There's no right or wrong answer here. The exercise is just to get you to think about it, because I think by default, we would all start to say, I want to work at the dream studio, right? But if you're not doing work that makes you happy, and it's not like there's room to grow there, and you're doing the 3D work, which she doesn't really want to do, and maybe it's entry-level boring projects, it doesn't always mean that it's the best fit, but maybe the community stuff is, right? And it's a personal take on it, and there's no right or wrong answer, but I think the important thing is just thinking through some of those things that we were just talking about, the pros and the cons, and so not just accepting the first thing that comes your way, but thinking about through the lens of your goal. Where do you want to be in a year from now? Where do you want to be in 3 years from now? Where do you want to be in 5? That's going to change, but at least mapping that out gives you a little bit of direction. All right, here's a big one, networking. It's what we're doing right now, though. Congrats, your first networking event. No, I'm just kidding. Networking is really important. It's changed a lot over the last 10 years, though, because I think when I graduated school, it was kind of a necessity. Being honest, not to date myself too much, but social media was really just kind of coming into vogue. People weren't sure how to use it too much yet. And so a lot of the networking was just getting out there and meeting people. But, your generation and coming out of school, so much of it takes place, whether it's on Discord or, you're chatting on Slack or it's Instagram messaging or Twitter, whatever it is, there's just so many different channels. So, I think there's a couple of things that associate with networking in the digital space. Become a fan. Whoa! So I think now some of the things that I notice is that there's a handful of people that are always messaging Dash, they're always applying, they're always staying on our radar, they're pinging us, they're sharing our content, and I've seen them do it enough that I know who they are, even though they haven't worked with us, right? And we're a small shop, there's only 13 of us, and so there's a good chance that when you're a small shop and you're applying for a role there, it's probably someone on the leadership team who's managing their socials, just because budgets are tight. If you're applying somewhere a little bit larger, they're probably gonna have a social marketing manager, might be less important on on who you're going for. What do you got, Jacob?
It broke.
It broke. Oh my goodness.
I was gonna fix it, but I didn't.
That's all right. Let's try again. So, thank you.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. Becoming a fan. I think it's just important from a social standpoint.
To jump off Mac, becoming a fan definitely puts you on someone's radar. I mean, Instagram has become like super big for all of us, and everyone loves getting messages and replying to them, and I think that's what motion design is. That's really nice thing about being a creative is everyone's super nice. Everyone will reply when they have time, and everyone will do all that. So being a fan just puts you there, right? Like practically friends, you're practically homies. And then I see a lot of you here, and it's just like we're boys. And
yeah, I think the biggest thing is you just want to be on someone's radar. So instead of just commenting on something saying like, oh, this is nice, can you interact with it more? Be like, I really like the way that you handled the composition and really delicate with this color. Didn't feel too overwhelming. Like, I know that seems silly, but continual comments like that and continual outreach and sharing this stuff is really good. Okay. The next thing that I'm going to talk about outside of socials, because socials, I get it. Not everyone wants to be on the social side of things, and that's okay, because there are other things you can do. The second thing that you can do is that you can start with email outreach. So I know that it feels a little weird to just blindly start emailing studios, but there is an importance that comes with consistency on that. And I'm going to show you how when this opens up again. The important thing is no one ever wants to be annoying, right? You don't want to reach out so much that it's like the studio feels like they're annoyed at you because you're reaching out so much, but you don't want to do it so little that they don't know you exist. So there's a good in-between here. All right, I'm going to put down the remote control this time. Maybe that was what my problem was. Bum, bum, bum. There's Danny DeVito. Excellent. Dear everyone. Okay, email outreach. Back on track here. So what you're going to want to do is reach out to creative directors, producers, or hiring managers with relative consistency. I encourage 3 to 4 month increments because in that period of time, in the professional world, a lot of folks operate on quarters. That's essentially once a quarter. And the key with your emails is trying to do it in a way that's as least invasive as possible, right? Don't ask for action items of the person that you're reaching out to. Be a little bit more passive about it, and I'll show you some examples here in a second. But give up some information. Be like, hey, here's a new project I worked on, or checking in to see if you had any upcoming work. No need to reply. Just let me know. But that consistency and cadence is really important. But Mac, how do I find emails for these people that I need to reach out to? Glad you asked. So if you go to Dash, we'll just blatantly put it in your face. But not all studios do this. So this is our info page. Here's info@dashstudio.net. If you've emailed this before, I'm sorry, because there's a lot of people who have emailed that before, and it gets lost. So that's one thing. You can also email our fantastic executive producer, Maren, about new business, even though it's not. But as you can imagine, she probably gets a lot of emails too. So there's risk with that. So it's okay, well, who should I email? Well, this is where the lesser-known social media platform, LinkedIn, comes into play. Oh my gosh, LinkedIn, are we talking about that? Yes. So if you go to LinkedIn page for a studio that you like, it'll lie to you and tell you that we have 34 employees, which is not true, but I'm glad that LinkedIn is giving us the benefit of the doubt. But if you click that link on any of the studios that you like, you're going to find a list of people that work there, right? So you're going to find out who works at this studio. And so who are the people that we talked about you need to be reaching out to? You guys remember? Creative director, that was one. What was the other one? Producers, there's a third one. Talent managers, those are 3 people. Those are your 3 best ends. Nice front row, love it. Okay, so here's Ashley. Ashley's a producer at Dash. She's not getting the majority of the emails on, sweet Ashley, she doesn't even know that I'm presenting this here. You can go to the page. Ashley's a producer, so that seems like a good end. So how do we know what Ashley's email is? Well, using a little bit of deduction and understanding that our URL is info@dashstudio.net, we can see that Maren is Maren@dashstudio.net. I bet we could surmise that Ashley's is? Yes, exactly. Wow. Oh my gosh, we're learning. So you want to reach out to Ashley. Oh my gosh, I don't know why I made that so small. If you want to reach out to Ashley, I would suggest something really simple like this and be really clear on what you can do. Hey, Ashley, subject line, 2D motion designer for Dash. So I know that Mo Graph, sorry, Ramon, I just called you Mo here, that she's a 2D motion designer, so that's in the subject line. Hey, Ashley, my name is Mo, and I'm a 2D motion designer based out of Boston, Massachusetts. That one line lets me know that she's East Coast, so we're East Coast hours, so trying to coordinate that is good. She's a 2D motion designer, great. She loves the work Dash creates, and I know my motion graphic and character work would be a perfect fit for you. I love it. Flattery and confidence. Yes. Take a look here. If you let me know if you have any questions. So you can click the link and it goes to her website. You can look at it. Looking forward to connecting. Really simple. Bottom left corner, there's some contact information with a reel and website. This is low barrier of entry. It's a quick email. You can send out a bunch of these to a bunch of folks. We won't take it personally that you're sending the same email to other people, but try to personalize it a little bit, right? Don't do one of these stock things that, is the exact same email every time, but send that out. Now, in all likelihood, there's a chance that Ashley doesn't respond right away. Don't take it personally. That's why we're doing this 3 to 4 month cadence. So reaching back out again with something like, hey, Ashley, hope all is well. Wanted to let you know I have some upcoming freelance availability. If you need help with anything, no need to reply if you're too busy. One of our freelancers started sending me emails like this, and I thought it was so great. His name is Andy Martin. Shout out to Andy, so if anyone wants to look him up. But Andy sends these out with relative cadence, and it's not intrusive at all, because what ends up happening is when we're busy and this email comes in and we need the help, it's always top of mind. It's like, oh, Andy would be a perfect fit. Gosh, we're so busy right now. And so that's the biggest thing. It's not that these studios don't like you, they don't like your work. It's just that they're so busy, and when they get busy, they default to the people that they know. And so you want to be top of mind for them when they're getting in the busy work. And that's why the cadence of this is so important. Speaking of great messages, oh my gosh, did I tell you I threw this in here?
That's not the reaction I was expecting.
Let's look at this perfectly crafted message together.
Wow.
So, hello. My name is Jacob Garcia, and I just wanted to reach out and say hello. I'm currently a 4th-year Ringling College of Art and Design student that's crazy to type out and eager to learn about motion design. Now, when I say I'm eager to learn, that doesn't mean that I don't know a thing or two, but rather that I'll always want to continue to learn and push myself with new techniques, experiences, and work. Of course, I want to keep this short, nice, and hopefully chat with you guys soon. And then look at this, clear links at the bottom, doesn't ask for anything, conversational tone. I feel right away like I just had a vibe from Jacob, right? And it was super simple. And so that's the importance of it. It's like a little bit of human side, being confident, getting across that information. That's what you want to be doing. Okay, so that was email 101. All right, so the last bit with networking that I want to talk towards is events. All right, so with events like the ones here, nothing will ultimately beat that. After this talk, I'm around here for the next few days. If you come up to me and you chat with me, I'm looking forward to it. I'm here to meet you all, so we can chat. And then when I leave here, if you send me a note, even if I don't follow up right away, I'm going to know who you all are. Like, the importance of that connection is so critical. So where do you start with events? I always think that's like a hard thing. Like, how do I choose the right event to go to? Where do I choose? There's a few for some bigger cities like AIGA, American Institute of Graphic Arts. It's kind of a hodgepodge. It's not always just motion design related, but it's a very inclusive and welcoming bunch. So I think that's a great place to start. You can also go to groups like AMA, American Marketing Association. I mean, marketers are the ones that hire us, so even getting in there and understanding kind of what they're looking for is a great place to go. And then, check out things if you're in bigger cities. Like there's the Panimation group, I know, that meets in a lot of different markets like LA and New York. And then there's MoGraph Mondays in a few places as well, too. So just a few places to start. When you go there, the biggest key with events and where people make a mistake is that they're so hungry for a job or hungry for something that are like, here's my business card, call me, I'd love to work with you, and it's all about the work. And that's not what people remember. The reason that Handel and I always have a good time at these events is because it's just conversational. It's chatting, that's what you want to do. Talk to not just producers and creative directors, but talk to your peers, meet other creatives from around the space. And you do that over and over again, and then people are like, we're hiring for this motion designer position. I need to call Sarah up. I've seen her at those events. I know she's looking. That's how this stuff happens, because you can be as talented as they come, but you need someone to champion you and get your foot in the door. And I think that's where it's really key. And once you start with local events and you feel pretty confident in your ability to, talk to other people. Then I would encourage you to branch out and try some other bigger ones or maybe national ones. There's a lot of groups like, the Dash Bash, for example, which hopefully you should come. But you also have like Off Fest, with Barcelona, which is really great. We used to have Blend Fest, F5 in New York, or some others to name a few. But yeah, get yourself out there, go to some events, meet some other people, and try to do that with continuity. Okay, so that was a lot really quick, but we have this networking outreach document. Keep track of that sort of thing. I think that's where something can fall by the wayside. So if you reach out to Dash, are you engaging on their social? Are you engaging with emails? Tracking your follow-ups. How often are you sending those follow-ups to make sure that you're doing it with relative cadence? Your event checklist, make sure you're getting some of those listed down. So then, it's not just guesswork. You can look back at the work that you've done and say, is this working? Am I getting any feedback on this? And if you're not, change the messaging, change the approach, change who you're reaching out to. It doesn't have to be this one-way fits all. But the important thing, and the big piece of it, is that, again, you're just thinking about it. You're cognizant about it with these efforts. Whew, that was a lot. All right, Jacob.
That was a lot.
Let's optimize that portfolio.
Well, the reason Mac, gets to talk for so long is because he does look at these. I mean, I'm just some guy who applied at the end of the day.
We had 2 positions open recently. Do you remember how many people I told you we had applied?
Wasn't it like 180?
185 people applied for 2 positions recently. So I don't say that to be negative, but it's just realistically you're up against a lot. There's a lot of people out there. So how do you differentiate yourself? That's where and networking comes into play. That's why it's so important to get out there so you can have a little bit of an in, and also why optimizing your portfolio is so important.
It's so important, and the reason it's so important is because I think it's something everyone always misses. Is you go into interviews, you go into getting jobs and everything, and you go in kind of like a robot. But when we're creatives, the most important thing is you got to bring yourself. You got to, show yourself through your art. You got to show yourself through your websites. So let's talk demo reels, because I know demo duels is coming up, and I'm gonna be there and I'm gonna watch them. And some of these things, some of this stuff is things you guys already know. So with demo reels, keep them short. No one really watches that. A lot past a minute, that's a little too long. And if they do watch the whole thing, they already kind of know within the first 10 seconds. Best work first. And, we were talking about this a little bit. It's what if you can't fill up that 30-second with what you feel is your best work? Then that just becomes you have to strategize how you kind of put your not best work, but the best shots within that not best work, if that makes sense. Holding mics is weird.
It's a thing.
Simple intros.
But you're right, though. I mean, so when you think about what short period of time you have to get someone's attention, everything becomes that much more critical, right? Saving the best for last, that doesn't exist here. You need to have the best 10 seconds that you can put forward right at the very beginning, because the way it goes down is I'll pull up your demo reel and I'll start watching it, and I'm asking myself, is this person viable for this role? And it's a yes or a no within the first 15 to 20 seconds. If I think it's a yes, then I'll start looking at your website and I'll scan through. Maybe I'll pick 1, maybe 2 projects, usually at the top of the list, because to me that's insinuating that the projects at the top are some of your favorites. So I'll look at those, and if that balances out what you just did in the reel, then I'll mark you as okay, this is a good candidate. But if I'm questioning it or having to search for too long, or I'm not as good as a reel, then I start to think about it, and you don't want that. You want gut reactions on oh yeah, this is good. And then from there, that's when you get into what did you write on your cover letter? Did you submit a video submission? And then last but not least is I'll take a look at your resume, just to kind of see where things are. But it's really that order, which is why it's so critical that you're really talking about 15 to 30 seconds to win someone over on that stuff.
And the reel is basically kind of a recruiter or whoever's looking at it, their way of even looking more into your website. Because I could stop them right there. They don't even have to get to the website, and that's kind of not a good feeling, because websites are the tedious and the last thing you want to do ever. But websites, this is kind of a spot where you write your description. This is where you talk more about your work. If there's something in the reel that someone sees and they're I want to know how they did that. I want to know the process behind that. They're going to go to your website and hopefully find out, or hopefully just see the whole piece and kind of get ideas of what you did. And that just makes you, websites should have range. Range is super important. Everyone knows that I do not like working in 3D, but I did show 3D work in my website did I want to get hired for 3D? No, but it's important to show that you can do that stuff, because when looking at it, if you just have 2D work and there's a studio that does 2D and 3D, they might be a little discouraged in the sense of like looking at that and being like, okay, well, I'm not sure if I need him to do 3D, can he do it? It's important, but show and tell, provide accompanying descriptions, and then a little one with the website to show your personality. A lot of us do little logo animations. That's like super important because it's an easy way for a studio to just get a vibe straight off the bat. When you're writing descriptions, you don't have to be so robotic. Put yourself in there. I know Mac hasn't seen my case studies, and it's a good thing. There were little curse words in the case studies just because of the simple fact that you want to show what you're kind of going through in that process. So, write it how you would normally write it. Contact information, keep it simple. Like about pages, you don't have to write about your whole life story. Sadly, no one will read all of that. So keep it simple, like, talk about who you are, where you're from, check out my work, and feel free to say hi. And then look professional. That's a big one I know you guys talk about here at Ringling is, ditch the student emails, and if you can, purchase a domain. It's kind of fun. I did name mine not Jacob Garcia, and that has been a joke for a while with email, so it's kind of fun.
Yeah, I think the only other thing that I would add into what Jacob said is, as designers and creatives, we have this tendency to kind of want to do any creative endeavor to the best it can be. I need to design a website and make it look super cool. At the end of the day, it's just a conduit for showing what you are really good at, right? Don't get too caught up in like it needs to be this really unique, constructed website. There are templates out there that do a great job. Just be organized and present your best work. And then going back to that example that I showed earlier, that cell tray animation, we looked at that process and kind of what went into it, all the pieces that were there. That's the lens that we're looking through. As an illustrator, I care about that final product that you make, but how did you get there? How did you conceptualize it? How do you take that script that we went over earlier and brainstorm? Like, what were some of the ideas on how you get there? That's what I want to think. When you're an animator, what were you playing around with? What were you trying before you went with the motion or the transition that you had there? Did you do any experiments? Did you look at references? Even if it's stuff that you're not making, but you're pulling from like a mood board, all those pieces start to show me that you're thinking more about it than just execution, because that's what folks want, again, as creatives, is problem solving, right? So just wanted to add that in there, Jacob.
Oh yeah, that's me. So a lot of you guys have seen my demo reel from last year's demo duels, but if you haven't, it's on my website. Go to my website. Website's super simple. You don't have to add too many buttons. It's kind of scary looking at a website with like 10 buttons. Just show your best work. About. You can even add a little playground on little stuff that you wouldn't put on Vimeo. That's like really long. It can be like little GIFs. It's fun. Like have fun with it. But don't also overdo it, because it's kind of a lot sometimes.
We made a little checklist that you saw there. All these checklists that I've been making, I'll make readily available to you. I was talking with Ed earlier. We'll probably send up a follow-up email for anyone that's interested to have that checklist and download. So I know some of you guys were taking pictures, but we'll send that out as well too. Yay. Yes.
And portraying your authentic self is kind of a hard thing to talk about because all of us are different, right? So from my experience, it was kind of weird because if I'm being honest, I followed all these steps, and I think it's an okay thing to not really know what the hell you're doing, even with following these steps. And that's fine. It's you being a person. In our way, like separating personal and work social medias is super important. It's kind of a way to allow, like, you have your own personal thing and you have your work thing where you just follow work and artists and stuff like that. And I know for me, I know a lot of you guys follow like me. I post a lot of like funny stories, and that's just the way of getting my personality out there. Like, you can still act like a human. And I think even with that, adding to like when you post little captions and stuff, you don't have to like put yourself in this chamber of like, I am a student, I was doing this for this specific project. It can be some stupid caption, it really doesn't matter. It can be fun. There it is. Okay, so this is a big question. because that photo isn't looking very professional. So Mac, what'd you think when you saw that?
All right, so when Jacob applied, the same routine that I've done with everybody. I go to the reel, watch the reel, and I was like, okay, this looks sharp. There was a variety of motion. It felt similar to some of the stuff that Dash was doing. Took a look at the website. It was clean. It was simple. There was branding there. I got very much a vibe from Jacob. And then I got to his about page and started to see some of these pieces here. And it's a good reminder that at least if you're applying to a studio, it's not like a corporate job, right? We are creatives, and it's important to remember that. I feel like we envision what we should be because on what you should be in an interview, like suit and tie, buttoned up, really calm demeanor, but you're neutralizing the aspect of why we want to hire you in the first place, which is because you're creative and your personality, and you're all unique in so many different ways. And so, yes, Jacob is flicking us off in his thumbnail, but look at that smile. Oh my gosh, and the dog. I mean,
shout out Sarah for that photo.
Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate that. Looking at, this is Jacob's style, right? It's his style, it's his vibe, it's his energy. When Jacob applied for the job and we actually brought him back for an interview, he hopped on the interview. Sorry, Jacob, I'm going to tell the story. He hopped on the interview and he had this chair tattoo that was showing on his arm. And it was this little chair tattoo. And I think the first thing I said, I was like, do you have a tattoo of a little chair on your arm? He was like, yes. We spent the first 10 or 15 minutes talking about that chair tattoo and making little jokes like, oh, you can sit anywhere, or stupid stuff like that.
That's what I get all the time, actually.
But here's the thing, that is so important because you're getting that interview because you're talented. You're getting that interview because you deserve to be there. You're going to win the job because of your personality and whether you're a good fit for the place that you're in. If that stuff bothered Dash, it's not the right fit for you either,
exactly.
Right? So it just goes back to the importance of really being authentic in those interviews, being who you are, get your work across, but be honest to yourself in that space as well too. Is that what you were going for when you put all that stuff together?
No. Yeah. In a way, yes. I knew where I wanted. I knew that if I didn't show who I was, and I was kind of fake throughout interviewing and writing and everything like that. I'm not the best writer, but if I faked it and was the super smart professional guy, and I got into a studio, my personality is eventually going to come out, and then that either becomes a problem or they're okay with it. But is it really worth the risk of even finding out if that's a problem in the first place? So yeah, I flicked Mack off, and that happened, and I have a chair tattoo. So.
Oh my goodness. What you should do when you do get that interview, though, in addition to being authentic, to yourself, do your homework. Don't just take for granted that you've gotten an interview and you can kind of wing it with just the personality and stuff. That's important, but you also want to do your research. Why am I a good fit? Asking good questions. Why is this position vacant? You shouldn't just assume because you're interviewing for the role that it's the right fit for you. You want to suss that out as well too. So, why is this role vacant? What do you have in store for this role in the future? What are my growth path opportunities? What's the day-to-day look like of this job? What are auxiliary expectations of me in this role? Any of these pieces, are all good questions to ask. And when you ask those questions, what it tells me as a hiring manager and looking at this stuff is you care, you want to be there, you're doing your research, asking questions about specific projects. Don't be late, don't be overly modest, don't badmouth anybody, no one likes that, so keep it optimistic. Don't overthink it again as well too. And then if you don't land your dream job, as far as landing, just a quick reminder on this is rejection is so real, and you're going to experience it so much. I'll share a little anecdote that I actually had happen to me last week. So at Dash, my role has shifted a bit. I used to be creative director, then it was producer, and then it's kind of gone into this director of content role where I'm trying to find new business for the studio as we continue to grow. And I had this great conversation with this guy, and we were chatting, and I was like, oh man, he's loving Dash's work. This is great. We're definitely gonna get a project with him. And it was all this good stuff. This was the end of last year. So I wrote up this email, And just kind of like following up, 3 months later, I do it too. So 3 months later, follow up. And I'm like, hey, so-and-so, really enjoyed chatting like last year. Can't wait to like work together this year. It'd be really fun. The email I got back, unsubscribe. He thought that my heartfelt email was like a robot, or he didn't want to have to deal with it. And so he just wrote unsubscribe. And so, I laugh at it and I move on with life. But I just say that story because, I'm 8 years in. I feel like I've done a lot of things well. Dash is in a really good place, and we still all deal with rejection. I bring that up because you're going to apply to a lot of jobs. People aren't going to reply back to you, and it doesn't mean anything about your character and who you are. It's just part of navigating this big chaos of a world that we're in. And if you feel down on yourself, find some good friends, talk to them about the work, get some good positive feedback, because sometimes you'll find that maybe the way you've been approaching it could be tweaked a little bit. But just ending on the fact that it's tough out there, there's a lot of jobs, but if you keep doing these things we talked about, you keep putting yourself in that right place, it becomes less luck and a little bit more actionable. So thank y'all. That's what we got. Woo! Does anyone have any questions? Yes. Here we go. Look at this. Mike, ready to go.
Oh, he's going mobile.
Hello, my name is Izzy Dennis, and I was a little curious about that animation you said you wanted to expand on a little about the egg turning into the chicken.
That was just a really, really fun project. So there was this agency in North Carolina where Dash is located named McKinney, and they were doing this really fun project for Enzo the Magician. It teaches kids about finance. So he's a magician, and you have to budget like his money that he has. So some of it has to go to repair his magic tricks. Some of them go to buy new magic tricks. Some of them go to like get gas so he can get to like Las Vegas for his big finale of a show. If you don't budget right, he doesn't have enough money to put on the show. It's really hard, but I actually failed it a couple of times, which isn't great. But what was so fun about that project is, motion design, it really is a mix of so many different fields, and it just is a great example of some of the opportunities you're presented with. We do video. We've never really done a video game before, but here we go, we have a client, they want these animated assets. So we worked with them and sort of a background engineer, coder, to put together all these assets. So we were designing all these different loops, and it was just a really unique and fun project that we were never expecting, and I think is one of the biggest benefits of this industry is just the variety of stuff that you encounter. So that's what it was about that. Good question, yeah.
Is this thing on?
Do we have enough time for more questions, Ed?
Oh,
Okay.
hi. I'm right here.
Oh, hey, there you go.
Sorry, I already have a microphone.
You do.
Hi, I'm Nico. I was just wondering, because we've gone through a lot of stuff today, what would you, because you've been in our seats, what would you say is like the most challenging thing, and how do you like not only like overcome that hurdle, but how do you like triumph? Like, what's the most challenging part? Is it like finding the job, or is it like interview?
Yeah, I think like the motion design industry to you all right now seems massive. It just seems huge because it just seems like there's a million possibilities, and breaking into that and kind of figuring out those first initial steps and how to meet people is always the biggest challenge. But I think one of the things you'll find really quickly is that by going to events, putting yourself out there, reaching out to other animators, creators that you really admire and look up to, and just trying to foster some conversations, you'll find really quickly that's a pretty small place and people are really willing to help each other out. And I think as soon as you can take down that facade of how big this industry is and recognize how small it actually is, I think that's really where you're going to flourish. And I wish I had done that sooner in my career. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Audrey. I'm a junior, and I was wondering, in your reel, do you put all the projects featured in your reel on your website, even though maybe not the whole piece isn't well done?
Oh, great question, and yeah, absolutely not. I think the single biggest thing I recognize on new graduating students' websites is I can tell that you want to be seen as a professional, but you don't have enough professional work, and so you throw everything you have up there. Like you've done everything you've done to try to catch the right person because you're like, oh, maybe they'll like this or maybe they'll like this. And what it does instead is the opposite. It waters down your portfolio. Folks don't know what to hire you for, and then it ends up doing the reverse of what you want it to do. So less is always more. Even if you feel like you have like 3 or 4 projects up there, like, gosh, this just doesn't feel like enough. No one in the space is going to delineate whether you made something in school, if you made something just for your personal time, or you did a collaboration. It can be all that stuff. It doesn't just have to be school stuff. You can also go back to projects where you really drop the ball on process, and you're like, gosh, this is a cool project, but I don't have like any process stuff along the way. Just build out the process for it backwards, and then just having that makes that piece that much stronger. So there's little ways you can get around it, but to answer your question, less is more. You can have stuff in your reel that ultimately isn't on your site. Good question, though.
Hi, my name's Pearl. I'm a senior this year. And I was wondering, because Dash works with a lot of remote people, but you also emphasize community in your studio as one of your values, how do you guys build community while also having people all over?
Oh man, that's such a good question. And honestly, it's something, Pearl, that we've like still struggled with and are trying to get better with. At the end of 2021, I remember that little pandemic thing we had. Everyone was kind of figuring out like, what is this next step that we want to do? So we had staff. We were all in person. Folks had gone back home, even in different states. And we were asking folks, do you guys want to come back to the office? Should we come back to the office? And it was really a mixed bag of emotions. Some people were like, no, I am working from home from ever. Or we had folks who moved to different cities and were like, I really like it here. And so we collectively made the decision that we were going to be a hybrid studio. It's totally optional. You can come into North Carolina to work in the office, or you could work where you want it to be. And so we did that direction, and the way that we've been able to maintain community to the best of our ability. Every day we have stand-up, so at 9 o'clock we all hop on a video call, and we all just chat. And 5 minutes before that video call, there's a little ping in our Slack channel that asks, what'd you work on yesterday? What are you working on today? And do you have any blockers that are inhibiting you from moving forward? So that we know if there's something off with work, we can address it. That enables those conversations at stand-up to be really casual. I mean, what do we talk about? We talk about like movies.
Weren't we supposed to do like mascots like yesterday or something at work? And
yeah.
we haven't done that?
Yeah, I know. It's all these like random things, but the point of it is that it's all conversational. We do 2 meetups a year. So we did a retreat last year where we flew all our staff in to Asheville, North Carolina, rented a couple of Airbnbs, and we all just like hung out and just played games and stuff, which was super fun. We do this thing on Slack called Donut, and it pairs you up randomly with someone in the studio for a quick like 30-minute meeting. I know it sounds like so cheesy and like another meeting, but everyone loves it because it's a good way to just like chat and talk about things other than work. Having open channels on Slack that aren't about work, they could just be about like, I think we have one called like Fuzzy Pets or something, or like Cute Pets.
Yeah, we have one called Jacob's Tattoos.
We have one called Jacob Tattoos. I mean, there's just a lot of really silly things. So we really encourage and foster a lot of conversation that's outside of work. And that all helps. Does it ultimately replace like being in person? No, and that's why we do the retreats twice a year to get up. But it's all baby steps, and we're still learning ourselves on what we can do in this kind of new digital space, Good question. Back to you, Ed.
Well, let's give our guests from Dash a big round of applause.